Hi everyone, welcome to this video about the pelvic floor. What it is, what functions it has in the human body, and if things go wrong and we get different types of dysfunctions in the pelvic floor, what can be some issues. So this is really an introduction to the pelvic floor. And I am recording this from Bali. I am at the beach. I was like, I'm gonna have the ocean as the background, but the sun, like, you wouldn't see my face at all. So now I'm turning toward the mountain, which is gorgeous. I can show you just like what's above me. Hopefully you can see up there. It's magic, and here's the ocean just for you to have a look. Okay, so the pelvic floor is a combination of things. It sits below the torso, like it's the bottom part of the torso, and it's a set of muscles of fascia, ligaments, nerves, and skeleton. And all of these parts are equally important to bring up as the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor is also the bottom of the bowl, the pelvis, and inside the pelvis we have the bladder. As women, we have a uterus and the rectum, and they all have their openings in the pelvic floor. So the muscles and the fascia and everything is adapted so that we can have those elimination points. So let's start with the skeleton. We have 3 points that the pelvic floor attaches to. It's the pubic bone in the front side, and then we have the sitting bones more toward the back. And without these, the ligaments and the muscles and the fascia would not be attached to anything. So it will be kind of just loose. And inside the fascia, inside the muscles, we also have the nerves and the nerve endings, so that we can fully communicate from the brain to the pelvic floor what to do. So this is basically what we have as the different components in the pelvic floor. And usually when we talk about pelvic floor exercises, it's only about a certain set of muscles in the pelvic floor. So just remember that the pelvic floor is so much more. The muscles that we use when we contract and doing something like a Kegel, that is actually just like 10 to 20% of the muscles in the pelvic floor. So there are more muscles that do not respond to that contraction that we think with the brain. The other muscle fibers in the pelvic floor are actually slow muscle fibers, and they work in a completely different way. And that is why I teach on this channel, how to activate those slow muscle fibers that are also more connected to the fascia and to the nerves. And then of course we want to have mobility in the pelvis and in the pelvic floor. So important both for the muscles and the fascia, but also for the ligaments and the skeleton to be able to adapt and move freely. So that's also a very important way to work with your pelvic floor. Okay, so that's the pelvic floor, and I could talk about ways to exercise and keep it healthy for hours. I'm not going to do that. You can find it here on my channel in all other videos. So the next thing I want to bring up is what function do we expect on a daily basis actually from the pelvic floor. And this is something which you don't think of usually if you have the function of your pelvic floor. If you have dysfunction, if it's not function in an optimal way, then you will be very aware of your pelvic floor. So what's the functions? Well, first of all, I already mentioned elimination, peeing and pooing. And this can be a problem on both sides. Either problem to empty, to actually get it out, or a problem that you feel you're leaking. And that can happen both from the bladder and the rectum. So that's a big thing. Another type of elimination is the menstruation that comes every month for women within that cycle. Then we have, of course, all the potential pleasure that can happen in this area, not only vaginally and anally, but also with the clitoris, and the whole area have so many nerves that are connected to the pleasure capability in a woman's body. So don't miss out on that one. Make sure you explore that one, because many women miss out on it, and we don't want that. And then of course, if you've had some pleasure, maybe it happens so that you create a baby inside your womb, inside the uterus, and this baby will grow, not really in the pelvic floor, but inside the pelvis, and that will also affect the pelvic floor. And then it comes out through the vagina, which is a big part of the pelvic floor. So to give birth is a very important function, and to be able to move through that process for the pelvic floor. And not only will all of these activities affect the pelvic floor, but also hormones during a woman's life, as we enter menstruation, as we enter pregnancy, giving birth, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. There are so many different variations of the set of hormones, and those will all affect the tissues, the muscles, everything in our pelvic floor. So this is really just important to be aware of. We're not machines, we're not working clockwise. We are women, we're cyclical beings, and even the pelvic floor will work on a cyclical basis. And so the optimal function for the pelvic floor is kind of like a jellyfish, you know, how they move in water like this. We want it to be soft and smooth and adaptable, yet strong and capable of holding things in, letting things out at the right time, and so on. And also, for optimal function, we will also experience more pleasure, which I think is beautiful. Okay, so that's the functions of the pelvic floor. And so I was a yoga teacher for 15 years. I thought I did all the right pelvic floor exercises, Mula Bandha, working with the locks and the core and everything, breathing exercises, pranayama. I didn't know anything about the pelvic floor till I had the prolapses, the awful symptoms, the wideness, the hemorrhoids, and then I finally started to understand how many things will be affected in your life if you have pelvic floor dysfunction. You know, just walking for me was an issue, and it's very hard to relate to if you have not experienced this, because it's like, well, you have bulging or chafing in your vagina, but yeah, you can walk, like you're not paralyzed, that will be fine. But actually every step I took made me even more depressed. So I was crawling on all fours. And this is just one example, and I can take so many examples of women who adjust their lives and feel limited because of the pelvic floor. And it's not really because of the pelvic floor, it's because the pelvic floor limits the daily activities. And we have so many every day. We pee a lot, we poo hopefully every day. We walk, we run, we jump, we carry heavy things, we move our body. And when you cannot do that freely, it feels like you're in a prison. So that's basically it. And if you are experiencing any type of dysfunction, please watch more videos. You will find all the solutions that you need here if you want to heal naturally. I do hope that you send this video maybe to someone who would like to hear about this. Like this video and subscribe. Did I do that right? I'm like, oh, I need to add this into every video because otherwise people won't subscribe and blah blah blah. So I did it. Check. Have a great day, everyone.